Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Story number 1. Dropping the Heavens, written by Sean Watson.
The Terran Union did what? How many troops?
The general's rage iridesced in ivory and mauve across his scales, his chromatophores working overtime.
They sent 250 troops planetside,
the aide said, doing his best to stay out of the range of the general's clubbed tail.
The elders be damned! How many drop pods did they take? All 250, Sir Garance.
Knight General Garance of the 6th bellowed out an expletive that would have singed the ears of the civilian and thrashed his tail around in fury, knocking the small aide to the wall and smashing his chair.
Bring me a new chair and get me the Terran commander now!
Vice Admiral Stephanie Breaker entered the Knight General's office without knocking. The troop carrier dropship was Brixen, so he was technically in charge of operation. But she outranked him, and it was human troops doing the majority of the fighting. The failures to knock was a gentle reminder of who was actually in charge, as was her sitting across from him before being invited.
Admiral, your troops took all of our drop pods and left 10 guards before the planned insurgent. Where are they amassing?
Breaker smirked and snorted a short laugh. Amassing? Why would they do that?
You can't be seriously telling me that this is anything other than a sabotage.
The general leaned in across to the admiral, his blue-green snout nearly touching her honeyed brown nose.
Why are you aiding the Skags?
We're not aiding the Skags. We're wiping them out. She widened her eyes and stared directly into his until he backed down. Now, she said, if you'll take a seat, I'll show you what we're doing. He sat, but before she could begin, he asked,
Why did you take all of the drop pods?
Breaker sighed. It's not ideal. The initial plan called for 312, with 2 heavies and 10 lights per, which we would have had if the TUS Harper could have gotten here in time. But you work with what you've got. 7th Fleet is busy wiping out another Skag fleet that was in their way here. She called up a holograph of the planet, showing the drop pod landing locations scattered around the globe.
What are these locations? They're nowhere near any cities.
Confusion washed across these scales in waves of dulled cyan and ochre. You're real pretty when you're confused, Breaker said with a smile. Like a rosy boa. The Skags are nowhere near the cities. They've set up all their infrastructure around the agricultural sites. Each of the 250 landing sites, plus another 62 lit up bright blue. 70 of the dropship locations added a white line to the nearest bright blue spot without a drop pod. These Marines are tasked with eliminating both their initial target and the nearest uncovered target. We would have preferred to have initial coverage, but she shrugged.
Why didn't you fill the pods with Marines instead of sending only 1 in each location?
Gary. You don't mind if I call you Gary, do you? There is no way. A heavy Marine plus combat armor plus 4-wheeler plus their ammo and missile loadout nearly maxes out what your drop pods can handle.
Admiral Breaker, do you mean to insinuate...
Please, Gary, call me Steph when we're not around subordinates. She sent the hologram on a lazy spin as the drop pods began showing as touchdown. I'm not insinuating anything. I'm saying that power armor plus human plus a full heavy Marine loadout weighs as much as how many do your pods carry? 14, 16 Brixen troops?
And your own pods?
They can each carry 6 heavy Marines, or an entire platoon of light Marines, with full loadouts, and the ground vehicles, of course. One by one, the bright blue dots began to turn red as the assigned Marines completed their mission. Garance watched in awe as his own informational HUD showed the same results. Live holo feeds from the Marines were called up one by Breaker, showing the unimaginable number of missiles launched from the box at the back of the vehicle that was dwarfed by power-suited Marines sat astride its seats. The missiles, though small, devastated freight docks, ships, comms towers, and more. He'd been concerned that Skag fleet might have arrived before their invasion, and even more concerned that most of the Skags on the planet's surface would be able to flee. But this was magic.
Admiral, Steph,
he said, calm tone settling over his scales.
Does this mean that the Skag can't escape?
It does, she said. and we hope to capture as many of them as possible. As soon as your troops deploy, we're just doing the heavy lifting first."
"What about our drop pods?" he asked.
"What about them?"
They were set for immediate auto-return."
"Yes." Reka put her elbows on the desk and leaned her chin on her hands. "Which means the sooner you start your action, the more of our Marines will adore you."
"How will you get them back?"
"Oh, the TU 7th Fleet should be here in another 4 hours, so 3.7-ish gons. We'll head back to our own ships then. Drop another 600 heavies and 3,000 lights and monitor the mop-up from there." He looked at the holograph again, noting that the number of bright blue spots turning red was increasing steadily. Far between any of the spots and far outside any city, though, was a little green arrow.
"What does that mean?"
he asked. "There's the local there who tapped into Skag comms and broadcast them out on multiple frequencies and is currently jamming all of the ground-based comms. She hasn't been captured yet, but we're worried she might still be hunted by their spies."
"How will you protect her?"
"First, by not moving anyone to her location until everything else is secure. If one of the Marines breaks off for something that isn't Skag infrastructure, it'll draw their attention, so, She leaned back and waved a hand.
"The sooner we launch, the more the Marines adore us,"
he answered. "Now you're getting it, Gary." End of story. Story number 2. We'll Leave in Pieces, written by British Tea Company. "What in the name of terror is this?" Volhus snapped as he looked at the 4-foot-tall thing that was brought before him. There were a few things that the Volfather found humorous, and though the creature's appearance was causing unbroken laughter and giggling throughout the entirety of his hall, he found himself unamused. The creature was 4 foot tall, had the high-pitched squeak of a chipmunk for a voice, and a head that looked to be the result of some poor artistic creation. It didn't help too much that this creature could be the best summarized as a fish that walked with its tail, with eyes that were not only different sized, but also gave the appearance that they were going to cartoonishly pop out at any given moment.
"Greetings, Terrans. I am Historical, Lord of the 4th Dimension. I'm here to tell you that as of now, that I come in peace. You need not fear me, and I mean you no harm. However, you must understand that most of your universe's inhabitants will not survive within one Daheim if I was to use my magic against you. Well, my superior skills in magic will make even you look like an insect. I am in need of some of those primitive toys you play with. They do fascinate me, and I would like to wish to study one. Give me your most advanced piece of technology, and I promise to go home."
There was a brief pause in time as Valfather made a facial expression that couldn't really be described with words. At any perceived slight or threat, the denizens of Valheim were typically ready to brawl. This time, however, there was but silence as thousands of men and women huddled in the dining hall all looked at the strange creature. And then came the eruption of laughter that proliferated the entire room. Food and drink were tipped over as berserkers let out hearty bellows, while the Valkyr rolled in their own wings as the sentiment conveyed by the visitor. Many made silent bets as to how quickly it would take for the Valhus to vaporize this puffed-up buffoon with just an icy glare. Instead, the Emperor of the Northern Star held up a hand to silence and leaned back in his throne, holding out a small, oval object. The Volfather gave the small device to the fish-like creature and sat back into his throne. "Historical! What I have just gave you is an advanced piece of technology called a grenade. Albeit, if you are as powerful as you claim, you'll find it to be a little interest to you. Nonetheless, perhaps you should study it carefully. If you do not mind, however, I'll keep this portion, the pen, just for a memory of this moment." End of story. I would quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and Patreons: Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Lord Azrakal, Dragzoon WRE, Holly's sister, Arcadian. Thank you very much.